Do you want to take photos of the moon like this one, or this one, or this one? You're at the right place. Keep watching. Hello PHOTOPILLERS, Rafael the Bard here. For February's full moon, Germán Marquez, the developer of PhotoPills, and Tony Caldera, the photographer of PhotoPills, and myself had planned a cool photo of the full moon rising during blue hour next to the Favarich lighthouse, a really beautiful lighthouse that we have here in Menorca. This was the idea. And this, the photo Anthony took. Well, in this video I'm going to show you how we went from an idea to a photo, including all the gear we used and all the camera settings we used. Ready? Because everything begins with a plan. Let me show you the plan of the moonshot. By the way, I'm leaving a link to the plan in the description of this video, so you can import it onto PhotoPills. So go to PhotoPills, tap on Planner, and now let's load the plan. Tap on Load, tap on Plan, and let's look for the plan. Here I have it, Moonrise Favarich Lighthouse. Tap on it, and you actually see the actual plan on the planner. Pretty cool. The top panel is telling me that on February 9th, the moon rose at 6:28 p.m. This is in the direction of this thick blue line that you see here, passing almost near the black pin, this one. And the moonshot was around 6:35 p.m., the time that's set in the time bar. And the moon was right next to the lighthouse. You see this thin blue line with this thick blue line around it? That's the azimuth line of the moon. It's telling me right where the moon is gonna be for the selected date and the selected time. In this case, I'm seeing also the moon size on the map, which is super useful to see the size of the moon compared to my subject. If you want to see the moon size on the map, just tap on the map settings button, tap on the moon layer, and make sure that you tap on the show moon size button. This way you'll be able to see the moon size on the map and compare the moon size with your subject, which is super useful. But let's continue. Well, the cool thing about this moonshot is that it happened during a blue hour. At 6:35 was blue hour. Remember that the blue hour happens when the sun is below the horizon, under -4 degrees and above -6 degrees. So the elevation of the sun is between -4 and -6 degrees. And then golden hour happens when the sun elevation is between 6 and -4 degrees. So how do I know that at 6:35 p.m. is actually blue hour? Swipe to the panel to the right to get to panel number 3, and on this panel you have the elevation of the sun, which at the time of the shooting at 6:35 p.m. was -529 degrees, and this is blue hour because it's between -4 and -6 degrees. Pretty cool. This panel is super useful to understand natural light and to understand which kind of light you'll have at the time of the shooting. Take advantage of it. Now let me zoom out a bit to have a better look at the area, the scene, and swipe the panel to the right to get to panel number 2. And this panel is key, super important. If you tap on the button you see on the panel, a black pin will appear on the map. This black pin is also key. Place the black pin on your subject or where you want the moon to be, and when you do it, the top panel will give you key information. To start with, it's giving you the distance between pins. This is the distance between your subject, if you place it right on your subject, and the red pin position you're shooting a spot. In this case it's 997.4 meters. But most important, it gives you the moon height above the black pin. This is the height of the center of the moon above the ground level where you placed the black pin. In this case it's 28 meters. But why 28 meters? Why I want the moon at 28 meters in this case? Because the lighthouse is 28 meters tall. The lighthouse has a height of 28 meters. And I want the moon to be at the same height, not on top of it, but next to it. So to plan this moonshot, what I did is to set the date with the time bar to February 9th, the date of the full moon. Then I placed the red pin in a location where the moon will rise next to the lighthouse, according to this thick blue line you see on the map. And then I moved time, I changed the time, I moved the time bar, I changed the time until my moon was 28 meters above the black pin level. Like this. And then I adjust my red pin position to have the moon in the position I want it relative to my lighthouse. This is at the same height, 28 meters, but next to it, not on top of it, but next to it. And finally, another cool thing that the panel tells me is the size of the moon. The diameter of the moon, in this case, was 9.6 meters. And as I told you before, you can also see the size of the moon on the map. Knowing the size of the moon really helps me understand how big will be the moon compared with my subject. I made a cool video on how to plan this kind of long distance moonshots where you get these big moons compared with your subject. You have it there. Watch it, it's super useful. Okay, now that you know the shooting spot and the shooting date, let's see the gear you need to photograph the moon. To photograph the moon, of course, you'll need your camera. And sometimes you'll be shooting in low light conditions like the blue hour, for example, and you'll have to push a bit the ISO up. So having a camera that performs well at high ISOs is a bonus. Also, you'll need a telephoto lens. Yes, the shooting distance gives you the size of the moon compared to your subject. This is the distance between your subject and your shooting spot, your black pin and your red pin position. But the size of the moon compared to the frame, to the photo, you want a big moon in the photo, depends on the focal length only. So the longer the focal length, the bigger will be the moon in the photo. So you want to center the attention of the viewer on your subject and on the moon. Use a long focal length. Just go long for 100, 500, 600 if possible. Also, you can use a teleconverter. A focal length multiplier is a great device. And if you have a crop sensor camera, congratulations! Take advantage of the multiplying factor over your focal length to get a longer effective focal length. Filters. Do you really need filters to photograph the moon? Well, Anthony didn't use any filter to photograph the full moon during blue hour. But sometimes when it gets darker and the moon is much brighter than the foreground, you can use a GND filter to balance the scene, to get the exposure right. Sometimes it can help you to get the exposure right. If you wish to master lens filters, I'm leaving a link to our super detailed long photography with lens filters guide in the description of this video. Check it out because it's an amazing guide. And last but not least, you'll need a good sturdy tripod and ball head, and also a shutter release or an intervalometer. The last thing you want is to introduce camera shake when you're shooting. You want the moon to be as sharp as possible. And a good tripod, a good head, and a good shutter release or intervalometer are key. Cool, now that you know the plan and the gear, let's see how to actually photograph the moon. On the planned day, arrive at the location at least 1 hour before the shooting time. Place the tripod and head right on the shooting spot. This is the red pin position. Make sure that the tripod is stable and doesn't move. Press it against the ground to be sure that it won't move. To be sure that I am at the right shooting spot, I try to find references on the location that I can also find on the map in the PhotoPills app. If I can find a rock, a tree, something that I see on the location and I also see on the map here, I know that I am at the right shooting spot. Also, you can switch on your position on the map. Just tap on the map tools button and tap on the GPS to see your position on the map. It's actually this button here, and a blue circle will appear on the map. Right where I am, here in Madrid. This is me, I'm not in Menorca at the moment. So what you have to do next is to walk towards the red pin until the blue circle, your position, is centered at the bottom of the red pin. Not at the top of the red pin, at the bottom of the red pin, where the red pin digs in the ground. The GPS will help you a lot to find your shooting spot. And finally, on location, you can use the night AR button if you're planning a star trails or the Milky Way, or the AR button if you're planning the moon or the sun, to visualize the shot through the AR view. So you have here the horizon, the sun is below the horizon because it's setting, you have the date and the time of the shooting. And I'm looking for my moon shot. So the moon is actually rising in this direction. If I swipe on the screen, I can change the time and see how the moon rises, which is pretty cool. Take advantage of these augmented reality views, they are super helpful. Actually, as you see, Tony did use them to visualize the shot and make sure that he was at the right shooting spot. They are super powerful. Next step is to attach the lens to the camera and mount it on the tripod and connect the interrupter or shutter release and make sure that everything is stable. Set the camera to shoot in RAW and set the camera to shoot in manual mode. This way you have total control over the exposure. Now set the focal length you wish to use to get the framing you want. Anthony used a focal length of 440mm to get the full moon shot in average. The aperture choice depends on two things: the depth of field you want and the natural light you have available. To start with, set an aperture of f8, for example. It will give you a great depth of field. And be ready to open the aperture a bit when the sunlight starts to fade away. For example, for the blue hour moonshot, Anthony used an aperture of 5.6 to allow more light into the system to reach the sensor. Next step is focusing, and here I recommend you to focus at your subject. It is much better to have your subject tack sharp and the moon a bit blurred than the other way around. You want the subject super sharp. You can plan your field of view, what will be in the photo, what will be in the frame, and depth of field, what will be in focus and out of focus, with PhotoPills. To do it, just tap on the map settings button, and on the map tools options, choose DOF, depth of field, here, and go back to the map. And now introduce the settings you want to use for the shot. Here I'm using the same settings Anthony used for his moon shot. He used his Nikon Z6, a focal length of 440mm, an aperture of 5.6. The shooting distance was the distance between the black pin and the red pin. This is almost 1K, 997.4 meters. He shot in portrait mode. You can change it to landscape also, but he shot in portrait. And then for the direction of the shooting, you can decide to align with the black pin, for example, like this. And the field of view will be aligned with the black pin. Or you can just drag this dark circle you see on the map to place the field of view where you want, the framing where you want. For example, here looks pretty cool. Awesome. The cool thing is that I can see my field of view and also I can see my subject and also the size of the moon right in one screen, which is amazing to understand the shot I'll get. Let's have a look at the depth of field. Let's zoom out a bit to see what's going on here. So I'm focusing at my lighthouse, and with these camera settings I'll get in focus from 532.68 meters, this is the depth of field near limit, to, let's see, the depth of field far limit, 7.82 kilometers. This is gonna be my total depth of field, what will be in the in focus in the photo and out of focus. As you see, the moon will be a little bit out of focus because the depth of field far limit is not at infinity. Let's understand why. I'll zoom on the black pin, and here I have another key depth of field information, which is the hyperfocal distance, in this case 1.14 kilometers. What is hyperfocal distance? Well, it's super easy. Hyperfocal distance is the shortest distance you can focus at and keep infinity in focus or acceptably in focus. If you're focusing at a shorter distance, infinity will be out of focus. If you're focusing at a larger distance, infinity will be acceptably sharp, acceptably in focus. And for this shot, Anthony made focus at the lighthouse, which is at a shorter distance than the hyperfocal. That's the reason the moon is a bit out of focus. Let's see what happens if I close a bit the aperture. If I use an aperture of, let's say, f8, now the hyperfocal distance is at 808.45 meters, a shorter distance than my focusing distance, the lighthouse. So the depth of field far limit falls at infinity, and the moon will be in focus, acceptably in focus, of course. We use hyperfocal distance a lot. Understanding it is key. If you want to learn how to focus at the hyperfocal distance in the right way, watch this video. It's really only 1 minute long, and it'll teach you everything you need to properly focus at the hyperfocal distance. Well, this is how you can easily plan your depth of field and field of view with PhotoPills. Let's move on. Let's talk about exposure now. To start, set the ISO to 100 or 200. Keep it low to avoid noise, and use the shutter speed that gives you a photo correctly exposed. For example, you can start setting a shutter speed of 1 divided by 160 seconds. Take this shot, check the histogram, and make the adjustments, push up and down the shutter speed depending on the exposure you want. Never use a shutter speed above 1 second. Remember that the Earth is rotating and the moon is moving pretty fast, and the last thing you want is to have a blurred moon because of the motion of the moon. So keep the shutter speed under 1 second. If the test shot is underexposed, you can open the aperture a bit. If you do it, make sure that you're getting the depth of field you want. Or you can push the ISO up if necessary. Depending on the noise performance of your camera, you can push it to 400, 800 or even 1600. Also, as the full moon rises, the sun is setting, so it's getting darker and darker. Therefore, to nail the exposure, to get the exposure right, I recommend you to bracket your exposure. Usually a one-stop bracketing of 3 photos should be enough, but feel free to bracket with a higher number of photos. The important thing here is to get the exposure right, to capture detail in the moon and also in the foreground. Remember, you're in control over the exposure. Open the aperture, decrease the shutter speed, or push the ISO up. And above all, bracket, bracket, bracket. Well, following these very same steps, Tony Claudetta got this amazing full moon shot next to a Favarich lighthouse during blue hour. For the final shot, he used his Nikon Z6, a focal length of 440mm, an aperture of 5.6, a shutter speed of 1 divided by 20 seconds, an ISO of 1600, and a white balance of 5600 Kelvin. And if he did it, you can do it too, just follow the same steps. Oh, and one last piece of advice. If you're photographing the moon, be always ready to move when you see the moon appearing, to readjust the composition, for example. And remember that if you move, the moon is following you. If you move to the right, the moon will follow you to the right, your subject. If you move to the left, the moon will follow you to the left of your subject. So be always ready when you see the moon, be ready to move. And the moon moves really fast, so be ready for action. And that's it. This is how you can take amazing photos of the moon with a telephoto lens. If you have a question, please leave a comment below. I'm ready to help. And if you wish to keep learning, if you wish to learn more about moon photography, don't miss our super moon photography guide. I'm leaving a link in the description of this video. Don't miss it because it's super powerful. And if you like this video, give me a like, subscribe, and click on the bell to get notified when I release the next video. And remember that you have the power to imagine, plan, and shoot legendary photos. Bye.